Hi, welcome to another Egghead Creations video. Today I will demonstrate how I mask digital images using two of my favorite masking papers. The use of these masking papers allows you to convert your digital images, print them out just as you would have them on a card, and then color them using traditional methods such as distressed ink, black backgrounds, and Copic markers, right? So the products I like to use are the Express It Mask It paper and the Inkadinkado stamping mask paper. Both of these products are wonderful products. They have their disadvantages and advantages, and we'll just kind of talk through both of them. Full disclosure, the Express It Mask It paper, it comes in these long sheets, and they're very hard to find. I do have better luck finding it in the roll format, but the sheet format is much easier to work with, and a little goes a long way. So as you can see, this is a gridded paper. It's transparent. It has an adhesive backing to it, but in order to use this paper initially, in order to transfer your digital image to the mask paper, it does require tracing. So that's one of the disadvantages, in my opinion, to this paper versus some of the more traditional stamping mask papers where you would just stamp the image onto the mask. This one does require a little more work. It works great, especially if you're tracing a larger area. For smaller images though, I wouldn't recommend going this route because again, it is a lot of work to trace this image. The paper itself is very thin and flimsy. This is traditionally used by more traditional artists to mask off areas of painting or watercolor paintings. I don't know if they really use it for watercolor. I wouldn't recommend it for watercolor, but for any more traditional artists. And it allows you to see your image that you're actually masking off. You still have to fussy cut this image out with both papers. No matter how you're doing a mask, you're still gonna have to fussy cut the mask. And that's just the nature of masking. This paper, however, has a slight disadvantage to it in that it is flimsy and it's very, I won't say fragile, but it is delicate. So cutting with it can be a little challenging as the paper tends to move and slip a lot. The surface is very slick as well. So when you're tracing, I do recommend using a traditional number 2 pencil. I used a retractable lead pencil, which worked out okay because this is a large area, but you can see where some of the lines didn't show up as clearly as if they would have if I used just a traditional number 2 pencil. The ink, if your ink is very wet, it will smudge. So as you can see, I'm handling this a lot and moving and turning the paper. The lines can tend to get smudged, which would make fussy cutting even more difficult. So you do want to be cognizant of what you're using to trace your image. And then we'll get this fussy cut out. Once it is delicate, so you do want to be careful with it because it can easily tear, especially when you're peeling it up or removing the paper backing so that you can adhere it to your layer, to your card layer. The paper can be very, you'll see it's very thin, so you don't want to handle it too much. Be very careful with it, even when cutting. So if you cut inside the lines too much, if you go a little further, when you go to peel off the backing, you may tear it. So I do have a tip or a trick, which is to just literally pull from the largest area first, and then just kind of carefully remove the backing for the more intricate areas. It's not very hard. It's just and I don't want to make it sound like it's just impossible to work with, but it is a bit more, it does require a bit more care than some of the traditional stamping mask papers. Gonna go in and fine cut some of the areas that I feel like it's gonna leave too much of a white border. I don't mind a white border, especially if I'm doing distressed ink backgrounds, because I'm just gonna come in with my Copic markers and color in the areas. I'm gonna match it as closely as possible in order to fill in those little gaps and intricate spaces. Let's get this pulled off. Again, it's kind of tricky, but we can definitely work with it. It's just once it's off. So here we go. Pulling off the white backing, and now you have this clear mask. The advantage of it being clear is that you can see exactly where it goes. Excuse my head, I had to get in a little close there just to make sure I was getting everything lined up perfectly, because again, it's clear, so you don't have any borders to kind of guide you where you need to go. You're just really looking at it, and you see how clear this is. And sometimes I forget if it's masked or not, but you can tell. You can, once you feel over it, you'll feel that slit background, but this is how clear it is. The Inkadinkado stamping mask paper, I like working with it a lot more, especially if I'm going to be working with a lot of smaller images, because I can actually just put this in my printing tray, change the size of my printing tray, and print this out. So I'm just essentially printing 2 copies of my card layer. The first one I'm going to print, is of course going to be the card itself and with the image position where I want it to be, where I want it. And then the second one I'm just going to print a copy on the Inkadinkado stamping mask paper. And again, we do have to fussy cut it as well. Some advantages to this paper is that it's more sturdy. Truthfully, it's just more sturdy, and you don't have to worry about that you get all the lines traced. The printer does all the work for you. So I do prefer this method. This is a pretty large image, so either one would have worked fine. Again, with the Inkadinkado, if you're going to work with a lot of small characters and a lot of smaller images, I definitely recommend using the Inkadinkado stamping mask paper, because again, you can just print those images. You don't have to fussy cut, you don't have to trace each one of those little small images, which is not a bad idea. It's just, like I said, just me personally, I just find it more convenient. So, and this one's cut out. I do have a lot more trouble though, for some reason, peeling the back of the Inkadinkado paper off than I do the Expressive Masket paper. So I went off camera and got it started, and now I'm back peeling the back off, and we'll get it placed very carefully. Both masking papers will allow you to peel up and re-stick, so if you don't get it perfectly located the first time, no worries, just peel it up and put it back on there. I do try to get it on there as perfectly as I can the first time. That doesn't always happen, but the advantage of these papers are they do have low tack, allowing you to peel and stick and reuse. So got it placed. And let's see here. All right, let's get some coloring done. So that's it. Those are your masking papers. Gonna color up the images using some of the traditional stamps and distressed backgrounds that I like to do. This stamp set is one of my favorite things. Stamp sets. It's forgot the name of it, but I'll be sure to put a reference to it below, and it'll also be in the blog. But I love this stamp set because it just instantly provides a flooring. As you can see, there's a stone floor option, the paver option, and the wood floor option. And I just kind of felt like for what I was going for with this card, I wanted to have the stone floor. I wanted to make the little witch look like she was sitting in a cottage brewing up something good and spectacular for Halloween. So once we got that stamped, and you can see that the image has stamped on across our image, but it's masked. It's perfectly protected. So now we're going to protect the top part of our floor so that when I do the distressed ink background, I don't get that color into the floor. And this is a low tack tape. You can find these anywhere. You can use washi tape even, but I just like using tape because it's an instant straight edge, and just lay it across the back towards the top. And there you go. So now we're completely masked up and ready to go. What I just pointed to there was I attempted to mask off those little stars using some liquid masking. It does not work out well. And what's the Egghead Creations video without an attempt to do something that does not work? So anyway, we won't even talk about it, but it it worked out okay, but it was my attempt to use a liquid masking to see if I could, you know, just give it the shiny effect, or to give those stars the shiny effect, because they don't have a mask on them. So they're gonna get covered up by the Distress ink background. So my plan for this card is to create a glowing effect. And the way I do that is I make sure that the very edges of the image or the card panel is as dark as it can be. And then as you move in, you want to go in as light as you can be, to where there's just almost nothing but white space surrounding the subject that's supposed to be glowing. So this is Black Soot Distress ink, and I'm just going around the edges. And now I'm going to take some chipped sapphire or some faded denim. It will work as well, and just kind of come in and blend it into the black soot, so that it kind of creates this this dark or blue-black effect. Being very careful and light-handed so as to leave some white around our little witch, so that she'll glow. I am going to decide that I need to go back in here and put a little more black, or make it a little more darker. So we'll just speed through this, adding this extra black soot so that I can get the desired effect of that glow. And you can kind of see it happening now. I love this. Get those edges nice and dark. All right, let's finish this up. Okay, now it's time to take off our mask, and I always start with the tape, so that it can, because it could be once you, especially if you've been rubbing it on there, I like to be extra careful with it. And then before I reveal, or before I pull off the primary mask or our paper mask, I have cleaned my area. I like to pull off the image mask with a clean hand, because I don't want to accidentally smudge or move anything or ink up my image that I'm about to color, because that's a lot of hard work going to waste, right? So that's my preference. Don't you just love a good reveal? So now we're just going to take the time and color the image up. And we've created a 1-layer card using a digital image. So it is possible. I know that's one of the things that people complain about digital images, is that you always have to fussy cut them. No, you don't. You can actually create beautiful 1-layer scene cards, masking digis, using traditional card making products such as the Distress ink backgrounds and your stamps. Just takes a little more time to, just depending on which product you use, to create the actual mask. I mean, you're either going to trace it with the Express It Mask It or some other type of paper, or you're going to print it out. Either way it goes, is going, it's not as simple as just stamping the image onto the paper, with more traditional card making mask. A little more work involved, but well worth it, especially since you get to, with digital stamps, they're so versatile. You can size them how you want. You can layer them how you want. So imagine if you were, creating a layer of cupcakes or coffee mugs, how simple this would be to go ahead and either trace the main outline of those, those cups or the cupcakes, or print it out and then fussy cut the mask itself to create, so that you can create the backgrounds that you desire. Here I'm just going in after I finish coloring the image itself with Copic markers. I'm going in with my white gel pen to add all the shine where I want the shines to be, but I also wanted to create some little bubbles. Now I've already colored up one card, and it's sitting off to the side there, as you can see. And I just decided I wanted to do this one slightly different by adding these little bubbles to make it look like this, whatever this is that this little witch's cooking cup is just, brewing and bubbling up. Using a fine white gel pen, just barely touching it. So I had to make some minor adjustments to my distress ink background, so I laid the mask back down and made those adjustments or changes, and now I'm just pulling it back up to reveal my final card panel. One of the advantages of using masking papers is that you can, especially the peel and stick, is that you can reuse them. So here are the finished products. I do have 2 more cards to make, so I'm just going to reuse my masking papers. This is the Inkadinkado stamping mask. You can find this in your online crafty shop such as Scrapbook Pal, Salmon Says Stamp, and I'll place my affiliate link below, which helps supports our videos and blog at no extra cost to you. And this is the Express It Mask It. I like this one. Again, it's more for more serious artists, and it's a bit harder to find. If I'm able to find the link, I'll include it. Hope you guys enjoy. Click that subscribe and that like, and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.